So let's say you found the skeleton. How would you tell people that was you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, hello everybody. I am about 15 minutes late. Sorry about that. I do not actually have a good excuse because I thought this was at noon because that's normally when I stream on Saturdays, and that's literally the best excuse I have is I thought it was at noon, and so I logged in to look at this and set things up a little bit beforehand, and people are like, "Oh hey, where's Dapper?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." So.
Yo.
Yo, what up? I'm just telling people that I'm late because I forgot what time this thing was.
Oh, you're fair.
Yeah.
Oh, you're fair.
Yeah, well, normally on Saturdays, if I stream, it's at noon. But these streams have been taking me a little bit longer, so I decided to start this one at 11 2 weeks ago when I was originally planning on doing it. But other stuff came up. So.
Oh, I know that life of other stuff coming up. Last night is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. Something definitely came up last night. Have you had your Burger King yet?
No, not yet. I was asking people what I should get because I'm not a very big fan of Burger King, so I would kind of like advice on what is good at Burger King.
I mean, if you're not a big fan of the sandwiches, I always just go with, like, there's only so much you can do to screw up chicken tenders, right?
That's true.
So,
that's a good point. Yeah, I could do that.
Yeah. Chicken tenders, some fries, and a drink it might not be great, but you're unlikely to hate it. I mean, it's chicken tenders.
It's true. It is true.
All right, so we are doing Spirit Science History, which was, like, Jordan's magnum opus. And, yeah.
Oh, this guy again.
Yeah, this
Great.
guy.
Okay.
So he
Cool.
He just before finished telling us how some of the survivors of the destruction of Atlantis were literal hairy barbarians who didn't know how to use fire. To which I point out that fire use has been, ubiquitous in humans since before Homo sapiens. So probably not Jordan, but hey, what are we gonna do? And for those of you who don't know about the Burger King thing, check Chesh's channel for the whole deep dive into the non sequitur legal show. Legal show, guys, is about it. It is a show about legal stuff.
No BK in prison.
Yeah, no BK in prison because somebody happens to really like Burger King and won't be getting it for a while. Alright, here we go.
The reason we're having such a hard time finding evidence of Atlantis is because for the most part, the events of Atlantis took place on a much higher dimension than our physical Earth exists on right now.
That's already hilarious.
I don't know what that means.
So first it's like, oh, there's no evidence of this Atlantis story. Oh, that's because it happened in a different dimension, but also still on Earth somehow. Okay.
So is that like a Feywild / Shadowfell thing because like mirrors of the same place but not the same place and they what I don't okay I already have way too many questions just about the lore.
Well, that's one of the things is I've been trying to assess this both from the idea that this is real, which is completely stupid, but then also from the idea that this is like world building for like a fantasy book or something, and it fails even on that because it's not internally consistent.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Like, for it to be something that functions in reality, it kind of needs to function in general.
Right.
And so,
like, even if we're using this as, like, oh, hey, I'm going to write a fantasy novel, it's like, you still need to go back to the drawing board and fix this stuff. Because, Jordan, it don't make no sense.
This would not pass any decent editor.
No.
Any editor who let this pass would be fired immediately.
Yeah. This is it's like, I don't know if you've seen any of the earlier episodes, but we also had Martians who were emotionless, but also very angry and violent. And it's like, I don't think you know what emotionless means, Jordan, because you can't be angry and emotionless.
Maybe they're like the fairies in Disney that can only feel one emotion at a time, so they're very emotionless in that they suck at having more than one.
Maybe.
Everything I've drawn of Atlantis can't be taken as that's what it looked like, because it didn't. This landmass did
because it didn't.
Exist.
So how do you know that?
This landmass didn't really exist. Then what have we been talking about this whole time? Like, We just spent the whole previous 2 episodes talking about various lost continents and people physically moving there, and they're putting up these spiritual vortexes that draw in life, and the Martians show up from Mars. And at no point was there a hint that this is all just pretensy. Like, Jordan has just been like, oh yeah, you know this entire thing I've been talking about? I mean, it's not real. Well, then why are we talking about it?
Okay, I just don't understand that any artistry we've seen of it can't be real. And it's like, well, if you're saying it exists, then I guess any of them could be real. If you're saying it was in another dimension and nobody knows what it was. But this is clearly like high fantasy styled artistry. This isn't artistry that's trying to design like a realistic version of Atlantis. That's just not how buildings were built at the time, let alone having the capabilities of that kind of structural integrity for those kinds of spires, unless you're saying that they were also technologically advanced, which is fine for fantasy.
Well,
but that's always ever been in fantasy.
He did say that the space Jews came from the future to Atlantis, so...
I'm sorry, did you say space Jews?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they came...
Never mind, I retract my complaint and my criticism. I apologize.
Yeah, you forgot about the space Jews. Everyone forgets about the space Jews.
I stand corrected and slightly embarrassed.
I'm trying
not for me.
I'm trying to drink some coffee with this without snorting it through my nose.
I don't know what you brought me in here. I don't know what you were expecting. This picture that's on screen right now is making me think of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, though, and all those whales and dolphins are actually the people that live. Those are the inhabitants of that Atlantis in particular. That's why it's in a bubble.
The artistry is not terrible. I like sort of the near future sort of utopian sci-fi architecture. It kind of clashes a little bit with the weird smooth-sided pyramid, but what are you gonna do?
That's super duper clashes. It's that, but you know what? Maybe they sometimes things in cities and towns clash because new architecture has risen up around an old thing. So
that's true. Look at like the London skyline. You get some of this like new ultra modern, like sweeping angled, smooth sided buildings, but also Big Ben, this gigantic and blocky. It doesn't entirely fit.
Maybe that's just an old. I guess it's possible that all of the structures are built of the same kind of material, and that's why the pyramid still looks like it sort of belongs in the color schema.
Yeah.
But it would suck to live in a place that all of the buildings were the same color like that. I would find that very jarring.
Yeah, like, come on, guys, slap a coat of paint on there. Maybe they haven't invented paint yet.
Atlanteans were not inhabiting that dimension of its existence. If the warship hadn't been protected by the Merkabah, the Nakals would have lost their memories.
I'm so okay. Wasn't prepared. I just woke up. I'm not done my first cup of tea yet. I don't know.
Okay, so...
Am I still asleep?
Probably. Well, Jordan would say you are, because you haven't ascended to the higher realms of consciousness where you can control the thin air with your mind.
What? Yeah, why would I want to do that?
So that you can...
Is it because the higher levels of consciousness are literally physically higher, so the air is thinner? Is that where we're going?
He did say that at higher levels of consciousness that the matter is more spaced out, so it's easier to control mentally. And so then I pointed out, well, the air is more spaced out the higher I go. So what altitude do I have to go to before I can airbend?
Hold on, I have another question, because what? But also, why would your level of consciousness change the matter around you?
I think it's supposed to be that as you go to higher levels of consciousness, you physically move into new forms of reality, and in these higher forms of reality that can accommodate your higher consciousness, the matter is more diffuse, I think is what he's going for.
I was gonna say, I hate to be the bearer of bad news here, but if you're in a coma, You're not exactly at a level of consciousness at all, and none of the matter around you has changed.
This is accurate, as far as I know.
Now, maybe they're just experiencing a different reality. You know, I'd be content in a coma. Can I just be in a coma?
I mean, I'm not going to tell you you can't be in a coma.
I might be by the end of this video.
It's entirely possible.
Earth came out of the void and began their work once more. Thoth and 1/3 of the Nicals went to the island of the sun in Bolivia.
They have
Aragot and
Thoth
wait, are those the space Jews, and those are supposed to be their really stereotypical
no? So that was supposed to be
racist noses.
Those that was supposed to be Thoth, the Egyptian god, who was also a king of Atlantis, who portrayed himself with a bird head and was an immortal, omnipotent being who still couldn't unscrew the human race from their descent into lower realms of consciousness, because apparently omnipotence isn't good enough.
All right, well, I'm just gonna stick with Azir from League of Legends because he's voiced by Travis, and he's sexy, so I'm sticking with that.
I mean, those seem like decent reasons to me.
Yeah.
1/3 went to Tibet, and Ra and the remaining third went to Egypt, where they waited.
I see.
Now, we're going to begin bridging the gaps
Like, I have
between this
bubble
story
gum?
and our current history.
In between, yeah, I think he does. He also has Scyther mouth.
Very cool. Very
During
cool.
the fall
All right.
of Atlantis and the dawn of our first civilizations, who were the Egyptians and the Sumerians, there was a 6,500...
Yeah, you know what? Get out of here, Indus River Valley. Get out of here, Yangtze River Valley. You guys don't count. Even though, you started urbanized life around the same time as the Sumerians and the Egyptians, to the point that we can't really tell who did it first. But
does everybody just forget, like, the eastern continents exist? Continents. I shouldn't say that's not the right word.
Anything east.
The the east exists.
Anything east of Iraq doesn't count until, like, the year, 1000 BC, apparently.
What? Why? Like,
I don't know.
This is the same thing with, like, the Noah's Flood stuff. Everybody always forgets that China's a place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, basically. Just forget about it. They have a civilization that stretches back to so far back that basically we can't tell if it's older than, say, the Egyptians. We know that they had cities around the same time. We know that they started writing not long after the Egyptians did. So, and Romulus says, how much did you miss? Well, like 10 minutes, and most of it was just me and Chesh being dumbfounded.
Yeah, we're just kind of... Yeah, dumbfounded is a good word. I'm not gonna... Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I mean, it literally means we were unable to speak because of how crazy this is. That's what dumbfounded is.
I have so many questions.
You won't get answers.
It's probably for
gap
the best.
between them. What was happening to us in that time? We have to look at this procession chart again. This is where we fell in consciousness, point C, and this was our falling asleep phase.
I like how in the procession of the equinox, consciousness occurs somehow. Also, I don't remember if he ever explained why the center of the galaxy was important for the procession of the equinox, but okay.
2. Both Ra and the Ascended Masters were waiting until point D. They had to wait.
I liked how Ra is like surprisingly good pecs. I don't know if you saw that.
6,500-year gap between them. What was happening to us in that time? We have to look at this procession chart again. This is where we fell in consciousness, point C, and this was our falling asleep phase 2. Both Ra...
Yeah, look at that. Ra there, he does some push-ups.
That's why it's Azir. I'm telling you, Azir is the Ra character design, like God of the Sun character in League of Legends.
But Ra also likes to skip leg day, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
It's very, very top-heavy Ra right there. Although, you know what, I really shouldn't criticize the art style too much. I actually kind of like it. It's kind of cutesy and fun.
I think they're super cute. I like them.
Yeah. So
they got neato floaty heads.
Yeah, I don't want to really criticize it because of all the ridiculous stuff and all the horrible stuff that surrounds Jordan, the guy who runs this channel. The art style is actually kind of top-notch. I think that's one of the big reasons why he's popular, is because you get to look at all this cute stuff while all this goes.
Yeah, he's got cute little artsies. Yeah. I like them. I think they're adorable.
They are.
And the Ascended Masters were waiting until point D. They had to wait for humans to just evolve themselves, over a 6,500-year time period until they were advanced enough to
Why?
actually receive this new information that
Yeah, so one of the things is, so you're basically going ahead and saying that about 13,000 years ago, modern humans, well, anatomically modern humans, were not behaviorally modern humans, but we know that that's basically wrong. We know that essentially 13,000 years ago, which is when he's talking about the fall of Atlantis, humans were essentially all hunter-gatherers because no other form of living had been established. But we also know that they were not significantly less advanced in terms of behavior or culture than modern hunter-gatherers with limited to no contact with, like global society, which you can find. There are still plenty of these people in places like some of the islands in the Andaman Sea and around the Polynesia and the Indian Ocean. You can find such people in deep in jungles like the Congo or the Amazon. And like you can look at the artifacts from about 13,000 years ago and notice that they're making the same kinds of tools as people in these places. So they're making bows and spear tips, and they're making glue out of combinations of, like processed animal and
like
plants.
People would need these things to survive, and there was selection pressure to make sure that that they were able to survive.
And the thing is, when you have modern hunter-gatherer groups come into close contact with, the global society that has a much higher technology level, it doesn't take them very long to adapt to that. Like, you get first contact with a tribe in the Amazon, you come back 5 years later, and everyone's drinking Coke and wearing baseball caps and t-shirts. I mean, they might not have cell towers out there, but, like, people adapt to this, and they start using, like, gas-powered generators and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like this stuff's useful.
Mm-hmm. The thing is, though, that, like, so there's no evidence that people 13,000 years ago were dumb. They just didn't have the technological history behind them. So
they hadn't gotten that far in the trial and error phase.
Right. So Jordan has to come up with this reason why they lost the technology. And he's like, oh, they were just dumb. But we don't have any evidence that they were actually dumb. We have good evidence otherwise. So
I mean, to be fair, people now are kind of dumb, and there are technologies that the majority of people do not know how to build or utilize anymore.
That's true.
So if there were some kind of absolute catastrophe, there's a decent chance you would lose a lot of information, and it would take time to get from point A to point B, but it wouldn't look the same way as it looked then, because there would still be remnants of those things like around. So you've seen how long a Nokia phone lasts just in the dirt.
Yeah. Actually, you ever heard the role-playing game Numenera?
No, I'm not familiar. Oh no, I know you told me about that before. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you would expect after the fall of a super advanced technological society for the world to look a lot like that. So you might have a bunch of primitives, but they're not dumb. They just also don't understand how these artifacts work, but they're around and they're obvious parts of life. Which, by the way, I have sort of a weird relationship with that setting because I would like to try it, but also it's so bizarre that there's no conventions. Like, if you've never played Dungeons & Dragons, but someone describes like an ogre, you probably know what's going on there. Like it's a big brute with maybe a small head and, big gnarly teeth, and he looks hungry. Okay, people know what to do with that, but with Numenera, it's like, oh, you come across a 20-foot tall centipede-looking thing that has, like, a tentacle face and weird bat wings, and it wants to chat about, like, art critique or something. And you're just like, what do you even do with any of this? How do you respond to any of this? It's all just crazy nonsense. But anyway, just like Jordan, it's all just crazy nonsense.
Yeah.
Going to provide. Sometime in here was when the flood of Noah occurred.
Oh.
Because of the pole shift, the Earth went through an ice age. This is scientific fact.
Okay, so
that just lumped a couple of things together. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So first, for $5 from Roman last name. To be fair, the Romans lost the ability to make concrete. Techniques and/or technologies can be lost over time. That's true. But Jordan is actually saying that humans got dumber, and we don't have evidence of that. Like he's not just saying that people lost technology.
I've seen how things have been handled recently, and I've seen like the IQ dropping in a few places. I think it is definitely possible that humans get dumber and less educated. And like, but that's usually a machination. It's usually by design, at least in that we've seen in our cases. And I don't mean to say that there's some big conspiracy theory. No, no, no.
Yeah.
Just like it's not valuable for the masses to be more intelligent to the people that are making the rules. So they don't.
Yeah.
And that's like been a long-standing thing with people. Like hell, even the Catholic Church took issue with people being able to read once upon a time and producing lots of Bibles because they were like, "No, you don't get to read this. We tell you what it says."
We have Digicraftmon says I know it's unrelated, but what do you think of the web series ENA? I don't think I'm familiar with it. And the Venerable B points out that Göbekli Tepe was built 12,000 years ago. And yeah, so Göbekli Tepe, in case you guys don't know, is one of the earliest archaeological sites that represents some kind of large-scale architecture. And it's a bunch of stone buildings with carved animals on pillars, and there are separate little dwelling / storage / food preparation areas that are marked off by different animal symbols around and stuff. And it looks kind of like a cross between a small town and a temple. And yeah, it was built 12,000 years ago. I mean, it was abandoned before the rise of the ancient civilizations that we can name.
And the thing is there's a difference between like abandonment and losing a thing. Yeah. And losing everything with no indication. Like, we know the Romans had this and they lost the technology. But we know they had it. So there's an indication that the technology was there and it was lost, and we can infer a little bit why that may have happened. But there seems to be an indication that it's just all gone completely. Nobody knows, nobody remembers, and there's no indication whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, also, when Jordan says a pole shift, he doesn't just mean a magnetic pole reversal. He actually thinks that the earth of the crust slides around on top of the mantle so that there's where the pole is changes its location on the crust.
Physically? Yeah. Like the oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like he thinks that the crust of the earth starts sliding around wildly, and then it settles, and the new place is now the North Pole, and you can sit on an island and see the sun rise in the west and do crazy somersaults all over the sky because the surface of the earth is spinning around wildly.
How would anything that survived in that climate survive after everything had moved?
No, it wouldn't. You wouldn't even be able to...
Sorry, I have so many questions.
You would get flung into the air by like hundreds of feet and crash to earth dying.
How would you survive this? Although there is one other thing, and it's that I think that is maybe getting brushed over here by our lovely little animated dude. If the people then weren't intelligent, we wouldn't be where we are now.
Oh, but you see,
human history is completely based off of brute force trial and error, succeeding and failing and dying, and throwing human death and suffering at problems until we fix them.
Yeah, I always wonder, like, who draws the short straw to figure out whether the berry is poisonous?
It's not a drawing straws, it's just who's dumb enough to eat the berry.
Fair
first.
enough.
Then the more smart people stay alive and they pass on the knowledge of don't eat that berry.
Right.
The ice melted, it would have caused
Could be animals though too. There might not be a human that eats it and sees somebody die, by the way.
So Jordan's explanation for where does the flood water come from is just the poles melted. Okay, here's a problem. If you want to suggest a global flood, we know what water levels on Earth are like when there's literally no ice cap ever. It's not flooding the whole world. It does flood some areas, right? Like it would flood big parts of Central Africa, like the whole Midwest would be underwater. Most of Europe would be island chains. Most of Antarctica would be underwater. Big sections of Northeast Australia would be underwater. But not the whole world. There would still be a lot of land with no ice caps. And I know because we have terrestrial deposits from periods of time when there were no ice caps. So, yeah. Actually, most of Earth's history actually was like that. Ice caps are actually a fairly unusual phenomenon in Earth's history. Even with global warming, we're still currently in a period of time that is unusually cold in terms of like the whole Phanerozoic epoch of Earth.
is the physical manifestation of who you are. It is your soul's physical aspect. What we are seeing in DNA.
Okay, so your DNA is your soul. So I want to tie this back to this week's Kent with Bent, where Kent Hovind said that when you convert to Christianity, you get a new genome.
This reminds me of asking the question when somebody's like being a jerk and you ask the question, it's like, well, how many chromosomes do you have? And the person is so dumb and angry that they say more than you.
I saw that. Oh, that was great. Yeah, well...
That's what this sounds like to me.
If Kent Hovind has some insanely bad ideas about genetics, and I don't want to super get into it, but yeah, he said that when you become the new man in Christ, which is a motif in the New Testament, that it changes your very nature, it changes your genes. So I just want to know when the genetic test is coming for being a Christian, because then we can settle the whole who are the real true Christians debate really easily. We just give the genetic test and say, okay, Mormons out, Jehovah's Witnesses in, just give them the test.
Good point. What about if you convert away from Christianity after the fact?
Oh, does God rechange?
Yeah, do you keep that?
Well, then in that case, we can test the Christian doctrine of eternal security. If it's true, you keep the new genome no matter what. If it's false, your genome reverts to a non-Christian genome.
Does everybody start with the genome and then they just lose it and then they get it back again?
That's a good question. I don't know.
We're all born God's children, right?
I don't actually know. Maybe when you make your first... You can make your first personal sin. That's when your genome is corrupted into the non-Christian genome.
Oh.
Maybe that's what it is. That first time you tell a lie or something.
First time you annoy your parents by crying, because annoying your parents is a sin.
There you go. Alright, we're gonna hit play.
DNA is changes in the codons. There's 64 possible codons in DNA, and humans only have about 22 or so.
Wait, what?
We're finding is...
What? That's a citation needed situation there. I'm not aware of it. Now, look, I'm not a geneticist, right? So, if you're a geneticist out there, let me know, but I'm pretty sure that humans use all of the codons in their genetic code. I think he's confusing amino acids with codons, and I think he thinks that every single codon might code for an amino acid, and because humans only use a certain number of amino acids, he thinks that means that we only use that many codons? That might be the confusion here. Because I've never heard of anything.
I'll take a nice dose of earnest confusion or earnest misunderstanding out of this so far, please. That'd be nice.
Yeah, instead of just complete making everything up.
I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Yeah, basically.
That there are 6 more codons being activated within these children,
What?
and they are choosing 2 of the 6. These kids are what we call indigo
They're
and crystal children.
Who's the they who's choosing? What are these codons?
The
you showed
children.
us that the children are the codons?
The children are choosing to use more codons.
Okay, how do I choose to use more codons? Hey,
Yeah.
hey, DNA, you know that codon that for some reason you're not using? Use it now. Let's see if I gain superpowers in the next few days.
You can't. Neither of us can. This doesn't apply to us because neither of us are humans.
This kind of reminds me. Did you read the letter that a guy got from his high school girlfriend, his father? Like 20 years after the fact?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, the guy said that, you stole my daughter's virginity, so I've now decided that a fair recompense is that I de-age 40 years and you age 40 years to make up for the 40 years worth of virginity that you stole from my daughter or something, and that he's now told...
It sounds like a really complicated plot to try and gain immortality, but okay.
I know, and he said that he had told the hosts of heaven to complete this act on his behalf, so don't be surprised if you start aging rapidly. It's just like, wow, dude. Okay, good luck with that. Oh, yeah.
And
anyway.
Probably the super psychics as well.
Oh.
Now, this is a chromosome.
The what?
The super psychics. Yeah, we didn't get an explanation on that.
So, okay, hold on. So there's regular psychics and super psychics then.
Obviously.
Okay,
yeah.
Noted.
Although I do like that we're actually getting a not terrible picture of a chromosome. You got histone proteins, which do provide the structure for the chromosome, and the DNA wraps around it. That's accurate, you know.
Goblins look humanoid, but they're actually fey creatures.
I'm
Saying.
I'm pretty sure in my monster manual they're listed as humanoid.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're humanoids. They are visually, but their history, like the goblin language, is based off of Sylvan. They're part of the Unseelie court.
Sort of like elves are quote unquote fey.
Humanoid, yeah.
Well, then how come goblins don't have resistance to charm and sleep magic?
Because they suck. They're goblins. I don't know what to tell you.
Fair enough. In my campaign, they do have resistance to charm and sleep magic.
Well, there you go. There you go.
This is lots and lots of DNA wrapped into this weird H-like shape. This is located in every cell and is part of your body of consciousness.
What? Okay, your DNA is, I mean, it results in the shape and function of your body, but your DNA isn't sitting around doing the things that produces your consciousness, right? So, like, to a large extent, you can think of consciousness as what the brain does.
Was fine until he threw the word consciousness in there.
He's always going to throw that in there. So, you can largely think of consciousness as what the brain does. But the DNA in your brain or in the rest of your body isn't sitting around reconfiguring itself to help formulate your thoughts, nor does it reconfigure itself in response to your thoughts. It is essentially something that is unaffected by your thoughts to a large extent. I mean, I don't know. Although, again, he did manage to find a reasonable diagram. I'll give him that.
What Thoth tells us is that every level of consciousness seen here not only has its own consciousness grid, but its chromosome change as well.
Oh.
The second level, where we are now, has 44 and 2 chromosomes.
What did the first level have? Because apparently, so you gotta remember, according to Jordan, we transitioned from level 1 to level 2 6,500 years ago. Which means if we look at the chromosomes of people from, say, 7,000 years ago, they should be different. But, Chet, you want to take a wild guess as to whether humans 7,000 years ago had measurably different chromosomes than people do now?
I am banking.
Okay.
Here's my prediction.
Okay.
My prediction is that Jordan is betting that either nobody knows or he thinks that we cannot look at the chromosomes of humans from that long ago.
Yeah, I think that he assumes that we can't look.
Yes. Yeah.
But the fact is we can actually get DNA sequences from people that long ago, and they had 46 chromosomes. Or 2.
Hey, listen, I didn't say he was going to be right.
Yeah. Turns out Jordan is just flat wrong. Like, at least sometimes he's like...
Shocking.
At least sometimes he says things where I'm like, well, I guess I can't technically say it's wrong because it's just airy, spiritual stuff that no one can check on, and it's completely unfalsifiable. But this one's like, nope, Jordan, you're wrong on this one.
To any scientist, this is basic biology. The first level, however, has 42 and 2.
No.
And this third level has 46 and 2.
Okay, so I'm going to leave aside level 3 because I don't have a way to reliably predict future human chromosome count, right? But the thing is, he has us progressing to more chromosomes as we're going forward in this. But the fact is that we know that humans come from a lineage with more chromosomes, and that we've in fact had a chromosome fusion. We don't have any evidence of chromosome generation within the human lineage that's not, pathological. So we know that humans are great apes on any level you care to count, whether it be genetic or anatomical or behavioral. Humans are great apes. And all the other great apes have 2 more chromosomes than humans. And one of the human chromosomes, happens to be chromosome 2, is a fusion of 2 great ape chromosomes. The conveniently named chromosome 2A and 2B in other apes. So we know that humans have lost chromosomes in our evolution, not gained. So, yeah.
So can we just switch level 1 and level 3 and he oh god, he's
it just keeps going.
It keeps going.
Okay, so another thing is chromosome count doesn't really do much to tell you like how awesome or sophisticated or whatever an organism is. Like birds tend to have over 100 chromosomes. Does that make chickens better than humans? Are chickens on a higher level of consciousness because they have about 100 or so chromosomes? I don't think so. What it actually means is that bird genomes tend to be arranged a bit differently. They tend to be arranged into many, many very small chromosomes, as opposed to mammals, which tend to have fewer larger ones. And so, yeah, I don't know, but apparently we just keep getting chromosomes.
And 50 and 2, respectively.
Where are they coming from?
The primary physical...
The higher realms of thought.
Oh,
That's
so bird
THOT.
people?
Maybe also bird people. Oh, maybe that's it. So Thoth represents, and I'm just pronouncing it the way he does. I usually say Thoth, but whatever. He says Thoth. So Thoth being a bird person and Ra being a bird person, being high-level entities, also have lots of chromosomes, like birds. So really, gaining higher consciousness is merging yourself with our dinosaur overlords. So dinosaurs for the win. Thank you, Jordan.
All right, I'm down with that. I like this. I like this progression. I see where I'm not going because I'm a goblin, but I see where humans are going. I got it.
Humans are eventually going to turn into birds. So congratulations, everybody.
Sure. Why not? I'm down.
The visible difference between these DNA in all life is height. The first level has an average height of 4 to 6 feet tall. The second level, us, has an average height of 5 to 7 feet. Third are about 10 to 16 feet, which we are about to translate to.
We're going to translate to the third level, where we're 10 to 16 feet tall. So we actually have some examples of humans who are around like 8 to 9-ish feet tall. And you can't just be an 8 or 9 foot tall human without that coming with some serious problems. Like your knees are going to get all messed up, your heart's going to get messed up. You can look at examples like Robert Wadlow or Andre the Giant, who were both exceptionally large individuals. And yeah, they had extreme joint and heart problems. You can't just scale up humans, and giving them a couple extra chromosomes isn't going to change that problem. Humans are fundamentally anatomically unfit for being much over 7 feet tall.
There's also the whole you're still limited to the size of your aquarium.
Yeah, like big humans are going to take up a lot more space. They're going to need a lot more. Like there's a whole host of problems with saying, oh, humans are just going to become 10 to 16 feet tall. And also, I noticed that the size...
We're going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and then we're going to lie down and die and become a new continent, obviously. I don't know what to tell you.
I also noticed that the size gap between men and women is apparently getting larger. Like, now there's a full 2-foot size gap between the tallest woman and the shortest man. Why? It's not like... I guess I can't say that it's any more unrealistic than anything else. It just seems odd to me because current human male and female, like, there isn't that big of a sexual dimorphism, but I guess maybe as you get higher in consciousness, men just get higher in consciousness more because they get taller, and as we all know, getting taller makes you higher in consciousness. So take that, women.
I mean, I sure, yeah. It sounds like something that Jordan would go along with, that men are just higher than women in general.
Well, except for Emma Watson, because I don't know if you know, but after he made this series, he had a dream about Emma Watson being a perfect godlike being, and then he was obsessed with her for a few months.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a thing that happened.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't ask. I don't understand it either. Not to have anything against Emma Watson, I just don't think that she's an actual literal god.
I mean, I doubt she thinks that either.
Probably not, no.
Fourth is 30 to 35 feet, and the last is 50 to 60.
Oh, so eventually you get to be Godzilla size. Got it. Although now the size differences has significantly shrunk. Because if you think about it in percentages, now the tallest women are going to be equal to the shortest men in level 5. So I guess it just changes wildly for some reason.
You may remember a being named Metatron, the Hebrew archangel who is the perfection of what humanity is to become. He was 50...
Not sure if that's the actual angelology behind Metatron, but I don't really care.
5 feet tall, that guy. The last two heights are far in the distant future for us.
Okay, so some guy in medieval Jewish mysticism was said to be 55 feet, and this is taken as evidence of humans eventually getting to that point because of... I don't even know. In case you guys don't know, a lot of the classical Jewish angelology and demonology stuff comes from like the early to mid Middle Ages, when you start getting the arrival of Kabbalistic practices in especially European diaspora communities, which then spreads. And actually, by the height of the medieval period, Kabbalistic mystical speculation was very widespread in Judaism, far more so than it is now. And that's where you get these complicated lists of names of demons and angels and ideas about demonic realms and whatnot, which, I mean, you don't get earlier. So I guess some medieval imaginings of Jewish mystics is now evidence of the ultimate fate of humanity. Okay.
So, this is a place in Egypt today called Abu Simbel. The first thing you notice is that these statues are huge, but with the information about the DNA, this paints a different picture. These beings would be in the 60-foot range.
They're life-sized. They're like
They're
life-size statues. Yeah. That's what he's getting at.
That's what we're going for.
That's why the pyramids are so big.
But
then why are the doors tiny?
Right! Why do the doors fit normal-sized humans if these are life-size statues? Why is everything in Egypt that actually has humans using it as opposed to just looking at it like art?
No, our godlike higher beings needed to sleep outside in the dirt because scum, I guess.
And also, if you notice, they have the same anatomy as humans, right? But we know that you cannot... First of all, you can't be 60 feet tall. It's physically impossible for an animal to be that tall. It would collapse under its own weight. It couldn't send nerve impulses around its body fast enough.
I thought they were going to a different dimension. Why are they still here?
Well, there's that too. So, like, all of this is just crazy nonsense. In fact, actually, I think it's Trey the Explainer actually has an interesting video on the biology of giants, where he goes into what it would take for starting with a human, and then for that form physically to evolve into something that's like 12 or 15 feet tall. And already you need some pretty extreme adaptations to just being able to support your weight at that point. And so go check that out if you want. Trey the Explainer on giants. Trey has good stuff. Most people here probably know about him. Although, dude needs to consult with a dictionary for pronunciation before he records his videos, because he gets those wrong a lot.
I need more alcohol.
I haven't had any. I'll tell you what. We are at about a 1 hour mark, so I'm going to do a quick intermission, and I'm going to grab myself something that's cold to drink, because I had coffee to warm up, but it's like, yeah, it's coming up around like 42 degrees here, Celsius, so...
That's spicy. It's getting at spicy levels of heat.
Oh, well, we spent the last, like, up until the last couple of days, we did like a 10-day period where we were routinely getting to 44 or 45. So
nice.
It's nice for the pool, because in the pool is like a nice like 38.
45 would be way too much for me. I would no, hell no. No. I'm usually done by like 27 and I'm starting to melt. So like you get me like to 32 to 35 and I'm dying.
To be fair though, a 27 there feels a lot more like 38 here.
Yeah, that's fair because of it's very dry where you are, and you live in a desert and I live in a swamp, so
basically, the humidity really does change things. But anyway, I'm gonna get some ice. I'm gonna do a quick intermission, and it's not even gonna be the full intermission for me. Chess, you take as long as you want.
Oh, cool! I'm gonna get a bagel.
Okay, I am back. I now have myself a frosty cold beverage consisting of some ice, a tiny splash of kept in the freezer whiskey, and then just a bunch of cola. Because, I know I should get alcohol for a Jordan thing, but I don't really want to get buzzed. Because, I have a friend coming over later, so I don't want to start off the visit with being on the way to drunk. So, here we go.
They were at the 5th level of consciousness.
Oh, of course.
These beings on a different wall are 35 feet tall. 4th level of consciousness.
I love the idea that, okay, Jordan knows that in recent history, people have made statues that do not reflect the literal life size of the people being sculpted. Is Mount Rushmore evidence of like level 10 humans? Were the presidents carved into the mountain of Mount Rushmore level 10 humans? No! Why? Why are we assuming that ancient large-scale statues represent large-scale humans? I don't even know why we're making this leap. It's completely unfounded.
Here are some third levels as well.
Okay, I mean, it's nice to see some awesome Egyptian art. I appreciate that.
How did they get in there?
They had to duck. Also, one thing that I like about this is, so we're going to go a little bit into the history of Egyptian architecture, right? So early on, Egyptian architecture didn't involve any columns because they didn't really understand how they worked. So all of the buildings were, or all the rooms in the building, sorry, were small enough that just the walls that were load-bearing could support that much ceiling, right? But as Egyptians started to come into contact with other groups that were using columns, especially the Greeks, who were sort of like, that was one of their big things architecturally. Like, they kind of more or less invented the column, and they were very good at using it. The Egyptians started to take that idea, but they didn't really trust the columns all the way. They were still kind of iffy. And so you get what you're seeing here, where you have these projections into the room of columns that are actually still connected to the wall, and they form little alcoves. So you get a bigger room, kind of, but the Egyptians were still kind of like, I don't know about this whole full freestanding column thing. Seems kind of iffy. And then later on in Egyptian history, you do get freestanding columns. So you can loosely date things based on things like, are there columns? Are there connected columns or freestanding columns? So a little bit of cool Egyptian architectural history there.
Archaeologists saw this and thought.
And for $5, we have from Lyric Soren, this man makes me sad. I don't know how to cope with the fact that people like this are real and not just playing Poe. There are these things called chemicals, and some of them can make your brain feel less on fire. That's what I do. I'm being very vague.
Thought that it meant that the man was just much more important than the woman, when in actuality...
Yeah, imagine that. Imagine looking at statues of gigantic people who couldn't possibly exist as functioning anatomy at that size. And imagine looking at all of Egypt, where the actual practical artifacts are all shaped and sized for regular old humans, and thinking, gee, I know that people today make giant statues like Mount Rushmore that don't reflect the physical size of the actual subject of the statue. I wonder if maybe the Egyptians could have also been humans who did normal human things, like make statues that were bigger than what they represented. Impossible, apparently.
The kings of Egypt had 5 different names, one for every level of consciousness. Some of the kings
The
were
guy in
even
this
able
video
to
looks
translate...
pretty gosh darn tall, that cartoon. I mean, he must be that size in real life.
Also, I like how Egyptian kings did in fact have a number of names, but why are you connecting them to these alleged levels of consciousness? It's not like the people that you said had the 3rd level of consciousness had 3 names. Most Egyptians who weren't royalty had 1 name. And we know because we have the names of common Egyptians in many funeral texts. Because when you get funeral texts, they were sort of like the form letters where you have like oh, we're sorry, we regret to inform blank space that, or hey, thank you for your inquiry about our product, blank space for name. That was kind of the format for a lot of funerary texts. You're supposed to, as you're writing it, there's a spot where you put in the person's name, and they usually only put in 1 name for commoners. So, were they level 1? Why don't the people who are, sculpted really tall have 3 names? It's just, I don't know.
Into different dimensions, and that's how they guided the population with the power of the gods.
Okay, so another thing we have to remember is that we have non-Egyptian contemporary accounts of Egyptian royalty, right? And no one talks about 50-foot tall pharaohs. Right? Like, we have things like wedding contracts or marriage contracts between,
Are you telling me that the Egyptians, like, wrote stuff down and sort of had, like...
Not just the
history
Egyptians.
texts of they wrote stuff that they had, like, news... Wrote down a thing that happened.
They did, but it's not just the Egyptians. We have accounts from Mesopotamia and Greece of people going to Egypt, interacting with Egyptians. We have treaties between various kingdoms and the Egyptian state. We have things like marriage contracts between various royal families and the Egyptians and things like that. Like, we have instances of, pharaohs saying having their sons fostered in
like nobody
Akkadian
just
Empire.
Decided to bring up.
Yeah, no one mentioned
it. There's this thing on the internet that's like a sexual preference called like vor.
Oh, I'm aware.
You would think that would have made it into its text if there were giant people roaming around.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go ahead and say no. Plus, we have the mummies of pharaohs.
Don't Google it.
Well, I'm not gonna tell you what to Google, but be prepared if you do. But the thing is, we have also the physical, actual remains of pharaohs. They're not 60 feet tall.
Oh, yeah. We've also got those.
Right, we actually have their corpses.
They shrunk when they died.
I mean...
Because they didn't really die. Their spiritual energy all just left them, so it just left nothing but a small, shrunken, shriveled corpse. Because they're not actually dead, they just ascended. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, yeah, that works.
They reached the next level and went to the next ascension.
And their body shrank and lost chromosomes, apparently. Because that's another thing. We could I'm pretty sure we have DNA tests of the Egyptian mummies. They don't have extranumerary chromosomes. Like, the thing, it's great because at this point, Jordan is making testable claims that have already been tested. We just know that they're complete nonsense. We know they're wrong. This stuff isn't true.
Today's top archaeologists and researchers, the Egyptians and Sumerians both began their civilizations right around the same time from each other, within a few hundred years or so.
Yeah.
Both of these civilizations emerged out of nowhere with perfect writing ability.
No, this is extremely incorrect. So, both the Egyptian and the Sumerian civilizations are predated by essentially pre-civilized, well, not pre-civilized, but prehistoric cultures.
There's a 100-year gap there.
Well, yeah, but in both cases, we have archaeological records of precursor cultures that smoothly transition into what we think of as the earliest forms of the Sumerian and Egyptian civilizations. And also, we have our earliest writing from both places is much simpler than it would later become, and wasn't really capable of fully writing down, like, speech. So, for instance,
pole dancing was invented in Egypt because there was a gigantic pharaoh and regular-sized whammies that just had to dance. That's all they had.
But yeah. So our earliest. So, for instance, you take a look at the Narmer palette, which is our earliest Egyptian writing, and it's a stone block that would be used to mix cosmetics. And there's only one thing written on it. It's Narmer. There is a symbol that would later become the determinative and also the logogram for city, but it's not clear if it's being used as just a picture of a city or if it's actually being used linguistically. But yeah, there's basically no text except for like 1 to 2 labels that are probably names. Actually, one we know is a name. But then we look at our earliest cuneiform, and it's all just accounting. So there's numbers, and then there are just pictures of the things that you're counting. So you put a number in, and then you literally draw like an ear of wheat or a cow's head, because that's what you're counting. These were not full-fledged writing systems that could be used to write literature when they first appear. So, again, Jordan is just wrong.
Abilities that were not improved upon since. When they first emerged, they were...
They have, in fact, been improved upon since. In fact, cuneiform and hieroglyphics went on to heavily evolve over the course of their history. In fact, in contradictory ways, actually. So, Egyptian hieroglyphics, as actual hieroglyphics, the full hieroglyphic form of the recognizable pictures that you get in monumental architecture, got more and more complex over time. And scribes started doing things that were essentially like visual puns and coming up with all sorts of elaborate alternate signs as new spelling methods using rebus
Comedy in
principle.
different languages is hilarious.
But-
so interesting.
But also, hieroglyphics also evolved among the common people into hieratic and later demotic, which were both simplified cursive scripts. And by the time you get to demotic, it's not that far off from just being an alphabet. It's got far fewer determinatives and logograms in it, and it's much more of just a relatively simple sound to symbol correlation. And similarly, with cuneiform, as you get the decline of the Sumerian language and the rise of various Semitic languages, cuneiform adapts to write primarily Akkadian. And while at first Akkadian is chock full of what's called Sumerisms, where you basically just write the Sumerian word in Sumerian cuneiform, even though you're saying it in Akkadian, which would be kind of like if you decided that Spanish was just a really great language, and so instead of writing dog from now on, you were going to write perro, but you were going to say it like dog. So every once in a while, you're like, oh, I threw the ball to the, and then it just says Perro, and you're just like, dog, and that's just what you say. Akkadian did that, but over time, Akkadian also simplified. They dropped some of the Sumerisms, and they dropped a lot of the logograms, except for some of the basic ones, like the starburst logogram that is actually a logogram for star. And they also reduced the number of phonetic signs down to basically a core abjad. And abjad is like an alphabet where you don't write vowels. So yeah, these things keep changing throughout time. And Raven Ed said, didn't the cow turn into the letter A? Yes, it did. So the cow is represented in a lot of... it ultimately goes back to Phoenician, which got their ideas from the Egyptians. But yeah, so in ancient Phoenician, the word for cow started with a glottal stop, which then turned into the letter for that glottal stop, which then got adopted for use as the ah sound in some Semitic languages, which then got into Greek for the same sound, as well as then getting into Latin and whatnot. And so if you turn the A upside down, you're actually kind of getting a very simplified diagram of the head of a cattle with two horns. So, yeah.
I'm looking at his graph here. Not so much pretty good and totally awesome writing ability.
Very scientific.
I don't know if this person spends any time on Twitter, but I don't think that there's also like a really big difference between the number of people educated to be able to write that changes over time. So I'm not sure what this is supposed to measure.
Also, Rodent No Last Name for 5 says, so Type 3 pharaohs pole danced on sketchy Greek columns to ascend their extra chromosomes to make artificial Merkabahs. I has a confused with a thinking emoji.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. That roughly sums it up. That's what's happening. All right, here we go.
Extremely sophisticated and
Okay.
clear, and slowly degenerated over generations. No archaeologist can explain how this happened or explain how it could have happened.
But no, it didn't.
I'm pretty sure I just explained it before he even said that.
Well, so we do, of course,
I'm not an archaeologist. Sorry,
So
that's probably my bad.
In terms of sophistication of writing, we mostly get this across social strata, right? So the people who you find on Twitter are not professional writers. But when you look at actual professional scholar, well, okay, some of them are, but the average the average person on Twitter is not there to display to the world their professional writing, even if they're professional writers, and most of them aren't professional writers. So the average tweet is a display of what you might call like sort of the lowest level of like literate strata in terms of sophistication. Not because the people there are necessarily particularly unintelligent or even necessarily less literate, but part of it is just where you are. Essentially,
you're not gonna write a book,
right? Twitter
write the way you would write a book on Twitter. Twitter is like, I'm just like throwing some thoughts out there.
Twitter is the graffiti wall of the internet.
Yeah.
And now that's not necessarily a bad thing. There's value in graffiti. It can help you get thoughts out and communicate it to people quickly, and they can just come and look at it. That's fine. I'm not denigrating graffiti. But when you're then talking about, okay, well, someone's going to compose a long, complicated book in some scholarly style, you're going to get a different kind of writing there. And when it comes to high-level writing, it hasn't degenerated or become less clear. Just the same way that languages haven't become simpler over time. They become different over time, and they become different in different ways in different languages. And Vandali 1998 says, for $4.99, why didn't the schools teach us this when we were in history? Because schools are usually required to teach you things that are at least reasonably likely to be true.
Teach the controversy!
Yeah. I'm waiting for the spirit science people to start saying that. That'll be an interesting fight. I want to see the spirit science people and the young Earth creationists go head-to-head in a battle over whose pseudo-history is actually going to be the one that is the other side of the controversy. Because, yeah, that'd be fun.
They placed Egypt and Sumer into a special classification called stair-step evolution. What happened was, one day, Egypt...
I've never heard of this, and I've taken a fair few ancient history courses, so maybe it's a thing.
I'm ready to be educated.
Yeah, maybe it is a thing, because I don't know everything about ancient history. Actually, I barely know a darn thing about it, considering how much there is to know. But I will say that for one of my papers in a history class, I actually sat down and translated a whole bunch of Egyptian hieroglyphics. For real. So, I do know a thing or two.
got its language, full and complete.
Masters
then
of
the
writing.
knowledge leveled off. And then it got another massive leap a little while later. Then suddenly, they knew everything about water and moat systems just perfect. Then, a little time later, bam, they're masters of hydraulics. How did Egypt and Sumer do this?
I've never heard of them having done this. So,
It seems that he is kind of referring to when there's like a scientific breakthrough.
Yeah, well, that is... The Venerable B confirms that it's not a thing. Yeah,
there was nothing, and then suddenly, boom, humans knew how to use fire.
Look, between myself and the Venerable Bede, if you're looking at pre-modern history, if neither of us have heard of it, there's a really good chance it's not a thing. But yeah, this really does just look like people invented a thing. And the thing is, you have to realize that our current pace of technological innovation is exceptional. Like, the current, 2020s era of getting bigger and better computers and faster technology and all this is not the way it worked. In the ancient world, inventions that were significant came around every few hundred years or so. Like, you got to remember, the horse-drawn plow wasn't invented until, like, the early medieval period. Like, yeah, that's the kind of pace of technology we're talking about. We're talking about a situation where you could have 4 or 5 generations go by without any significant actual technological change. But then once one happens, once you get a new technique for, say, water management, it's going to spread and make a significant difference quickly, and then things are going to settle out again. That's just how technology worked in the ancient world, basically.
It's also like a suddenly, right? It's they're making it appear that like suddenly it's this, and the answer is that there's been people that have been working on the problem in the background for years, and they finally succeeded. And when they succeeded, it became popularized, and we start seeing it in places. It doesn't mean that people weren't making attempts and trying to do something for a long time before they succeeded at it. Flying airplanes would probably be a very good example of this.
Yeah, people were working on air vehicles for like a century before someone figured out how to make it work reasonably well enough.
Suddenly, jet engines.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was less than 100 years between that and jet engines.
Yeah, because they breakthrough of how to do it, and then it was just improving it and expounding upon the breakthrough.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So the breakthrough itself was relatively simple. It was just lift, drag, and understanding the forces and how to overcome those forces.
Well, this is what Thoth said. When we were evolving on our own for 6,500 years, Ra and the Ascended Masters were waiting in an underground city.
Okay, hold on. So now there's also a secret underground city.
With an airship garage.
Well, we already knew about the airship garage and the Hall of Records. Those were already pre-established aspects of this, but now there's also a secret underground city.
Hell yeah.
Now, people have ground-penetrating radar. We can find underground rooms without having to go check.
We're just not looking, I guess.
Oh, wait. Road No Less Name says the horse/ox-drawn plow. No. The horse-drawn plow does not go back that far. The ox-drawn plow does, because it took millennia for people to figure out how to put a yoke on a horse without it cutting off the blood supply to the horse's brain, which, I don't know if you know this about horses, but they need the blood to keep going to their brain or they die.
Seems important, yeah. What's the, okay, I have a question. They've got an airship garage. Is there, like, underground city big enough to fly around in? Or is not?
Oh, no, the airship is to defend...
Why are they deciding to be underground in secret?
Because...
Who said this? He said this guy said this. When? Who told you this? Where did you find this information?
It comes from the writings of a man who calls himself Drunvalo Melchizedek, who claims to channel the ancient Egyptian god Thoth, who is also the king of ancient Atlantis. That is where this comes from.
So, is this guy's real name like Dave?
Probably, yeah.
Or something.
I'm pretty sure his real name isn't Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Jimmy.
Which, by the way, in case you guys don't know, Melchizedek is a biblical reference to a rather mysterious person who is a priest of God without being part of the Aaronic line of priests from which you get, like, modern Jewish Cohens and stuff like that, as well as the line that the priests in the First and Second Temples were drawn from. And so he's long been associated with sort of like Abrahamic mysticism and stuff, because he's from some other line of priestliness that perhaps was directly ordained by God before, the sons of Abraham and whatnot. So that's a whole long history of mysticism associated with that biblical
Sounds
character.
like they got mad. That sounds like they got mad that God fired them and got somebody else.
Maybe.
Beneath the Great Pyramid. We'll come back to this in a bit. Thoth's son Tat formed a group called the Tat Brotherhood, which is a secret group that still exists today as protectors and keepers of the sacred temples.
Well, first of all, look at that sacred temple. They're not doing a great job. Because
that does look pretty open.
Yeah, that looks... I mean, look at those statues. They're falling apart.
That guy has no face. Was he born that way?
Probably not. No.
Did he ascend to have no face?
Well, and then the guy on the left is, like, missing various chunks of his face.
Obviously, these are just scars from previous battles. I don't know.
There you go. That might be it. So yeah, the Tat Brotherhood is doing a crap job as far as I can tell. But also, I love how Jordan likes to go on about things like secret societies that he just happens to know about. It's like, well, it's not much of a secret if you just happen to know about it. Like, how do you know about the secret lizard overlords that actually rule the world, Jordan? And if they rule the world and control the internet, as Jordan says, why do they let him talk about it?
Because he knows they know that nobody's going to believe him.
Yeah. Oh, and Alan points out the Melchizedek priesthood is higher than the Aaronic priesthood in Mormonism. That is also correct. The Mormon Church claims to have both the Aaronic and Melchizedek priesthood lines restored to it by various biblical figures during visions that Joseph Smith is said to have had.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Today, they're still connected to the Ascended Masters. So about 6,000 years ago, some members of the Tat Brotherhood would wait until they would meet someone who could understand what they were going to teach them. When they found someone, they would just tune their frequencies to the third dimension and walk up and tell them information flat out.
Would tune their frequencies to the third dimension. Frequency of what? This is the thing about Jordan and a lot of
waves.
Baby. But this is the thing about Jordan and a lot of New Age people. They have this idea that frequency is like its own physical thing that exists, even though frequency is just how often per unit time something happens.
Oh, I think he meant frequency like a radio frequency.
Well, that's what a radio frequency is, right? When you change the frequency on your radio, you're changing the band of frequency values for electromagnetic radiation that your antenna is going to start picking up.
Right.
So you can't just say, oh, I have a frequency. In order to have a frequency, you have...
Wizard goes burr. If the lizard wizard is going burr, it means he's a blizzard lizard wizard.
Yeah, humans are apparently radio. So in order to say you have a frequency, you have to have something that's repeatedly happening. Like your heart rate has a frequency. So heartbeats can have a frequency. you can have a frequency of blinking, but you just as a person don't just have a frequency. It doesn't mean anything. And yeah, vibrating bodies are an example of something with a frequency. Also, like screen refresh rate, right? Like my screen that I'm using.
Yeah, if that's the case, then wouldn't people have a frequency?
Well, I mean, certain parts about them would have a frequency. Like you would have a frequency of your.
I'm getting too deep. I'm getting too deep into the lore.
So yeah, it doesn't really mean anything to say a person has a frequency as a whole, because humans don't it's undefined.
They said, hey, if you do this and this happens. The Egyptians would say, wow, look at that. Then they would go underground, wait another little while, and repeat the process. Over a short period of time, the Egyptian and Sumerian evolution shot up in stair steps. As for the Sumerians, they also received a more detailed story by those who were assisting them.
Why? Why didn't they give the Egyptians this cool, detailed story? Who knows?
Described to the Sumerians in all of the details they remembered. They said, this...
For 499 US from Vandalia 1998, we have, if I remember my biblical history, Melchizedek is bigger than Aaron because the sperm that created him was still inside Abraham via ancestry when he tied to Melchizedek. I don't remember any of that from the Bible, although there may well be some much later commentary that said stuff like that, because Bible fanfic is always much more detailed and let's just say interesting than the Bible itself. You always get all sorts of rather strange claims in later Bible fanfic, which is mostly what I consider a lot of stuff from like 500 BC on, in terms of like mystical writings and stuff like that, to be. It's essentially Bible fanfic. Which, I mean, hey, I'm not going to say that there's no fun in Bible fanfic. Fanfic is cool.
This is the history of the planet. Write it down. The Sumerians knew about the precession of the equinox because they were told it by the Nacals from Atlantis. After this stair-step period, we
don't actually really have any good evidence that the Sumerians knew much about the precession of the equinox. You get this idea from New Agers based on like weird things that they pull out of scriptures that they say are about astrology, but that probably aren't.
began to fall asleep further. Things got worse once more.
How do you know?
Our falling sleep.
What was the technological decline of the Egyptians? Did they forget how to use irrigation? Because they didn't. I mean, did they forget how to use the wheel? Nope. Yeah, basically. Oh, Alan points out, an enlarged prostate can increase your nature calling frequency. That's true.
Stage of procession, and although the Nacals had given us a boost, we were consciously dozing off. On that note, it's time for the story.
Wait, did like everybody in Egypt just start getting narcolepsy?
Apparently. And apparently they chose to, because he said they were consciously dozing off, which I assume doesn't mean that they were falling asleep while conscious. It means they were consciously making a choice to fall asleep. So apparently Egyptians were just like, technology? Who needs it? Even though that didn't actually happen.
Keep an open mind about this, because there is very little proof for what I'm about to say.
Jordan, I have never agreed with you more than just right there.
That's the best joke in this whole video. Good job. I approve.
At least he's open about it. He's like, hey, there's no reason for you to believe any of this, but maybe think about it. Okay, fair.
No, he just said that implying that everything that he said before actually had evidence and stuff behind it.
Oh my goodness.
He's like, listen, all right, now we've gone past like the basic stuff that everybody obviously already knows. Now we're going to get into the weird stuff. Oh, okay.
For over 40 years, Drunvalo Melchizedek has been studying human consciousness through sacred geometry and spiritual teachers and masters all over the world.
In basic trigonometry.
Yeah, this is basically just, it's a combination of mixing and matching whatever sounds cool from various like mystical belief systems on Earth, drawing pretty pictures with a compass and making crap up that you said you channeled. That's basically what Drunvalo Melchizedek does.
He was contacted by a source in Egypt who said that something incredible had been discovered. A stone stele came out of the ground between the paws of the Sphinx into the daylight. They removed.
Okay, the theme for this whole section is going to be citation needed. I don't believe
things that didn't happen for 200, Alex.
Right. I don't believe any of this happened.
Moved it and dug into the earth beneath the Sphinx. There they found a room with 3 tunnels leading off of it. One of the tunnels, which went to the Great Pyramid, had another tunnel coming off it, and it was shielded by a wall of light.
How much random crap that no one knows about can you possibly fit under the Sphinx and the pyramids? Because now we're on thing number 4 that's under there. Like, holy crap.
Maybe this is leading to thing number 2 or number 3.
Maybe.
Bullets could not pass through this field, and people could not even get close to it.
I'm sorry, so hold up. You find a brand new archaeological site, and your first thought is, hey, let's bring guns. No. Nor would you start firing guns randomly into an archaeological site. Like, this is just crazy talk. Who brought these guns?
It sounds like somebody's been watching too much Stargate.
Seriously. Like, oh, hey, we found a tunnel. Let's fire bullets down it. What? Why would you even think to do that? Why would anyone have that first reaction? Or even reaction in general? Here's the thing about guns, right? Most people who have a gun on them don't use the gun unless something is threatening them. And the people who do use guns on things that aren't threatening them tend to use them specifically on things that they can hurt with a gun, which wouldn't include a bunch of rocks in a tunnel or necessarily a glowy wall of light. Like, it's just yeah. It's a weird sort of thing. Like, that's not how guns are used typically. And again, people don't just normally bring guns underground with them in archaeological expeditions because there's no use for it. All it can do is cause problems.
Without feeling like they're going to die. The Egyptian government found a particular person who could turn off this field. They also had brought in Paramount Studios to film it, as they had filmed the opening of King Tut's tomb. They had
okay, so Paramount has this all on film. So I guess, hey, guys, go subscribe to Paramount Plus, because I'm sure the footage is forthcoming.
a good relationship with Egypt. The government wanted several $1 million from Paramount, but at the last minute they asked for an extra $1.5 million under the table.
Why?
Paramount was outraged and they backed.
Also, why would a government need to be paid under the table? They're the ones that you hide
They're
things
the
from.
government.
Right. The government is the ones that you hide from when you're paying things under the table.
What? Or why wouldn't they just go to another movie studio?
Right. Hey, I'll bet MGM would be interested. Like, none of this makes sense.
King Tut is a Disney princess now. What do you want?
My goodness. Okay.
Backed off. Things were silent for about 3 months. Then, Drunvalo heard from his source again, who was involved in all this, who said that 3 men shut off the light field and went inside. They found themselves inside
Any clues to how they shut off the light field? They just did it? Okay.
a very large building.
3
that went
guys.
I don't even know.
Harry,
for
Curly, and
miles
Mo
underground.
walked down this and turned the. It was just a light switch that they just felt around. They didn't notice it before. This sounds like, you know what? This does actually sound like a Three Stooges like movie.
It does. And hopefully the other archaeologists down there didn't shoot them, because apparently there's just guns going off all over the place.
Down, which was really the edge of a giant underground city, which was really just one giant building. Then, a little while later, an Egyptian
So
archaeologist
it's not a
named Larry
city,
Hunter
it's just a big building? Is
guess
it the city from before? Is the city from before just a building? I'm so confused.
I guess it's a city-sized building? Like, you know when you play, like, SimCity and you get to
So,
the point where you can get the
Judge
archaeology?
Dredd?
Yeah, well, no, because Mega City 1 was made up of multiple buildings.
Yeah, but like each those sky rises was basically its own city.
Yeah, I guess you could go with that, yeah. Oh, and Vandelli 1998 for 199 says, found where I remember it from, Hebrews 7:4 through 10. Well, that's definitely not the Old Testament.
Me and the boys. Listen, we're kind of a big deal. It's like we brought Nick, Brian, and Kevin, but left AJ and Howie at home.
Yeah. Oh,
or
and
they're the ones with the guns at the other end of the hallway.
Don Giovanni says bribes, always bribes. Like, yeah, but normally when you pay bribes, it's like to a particular official. And then it's not usually a $1.5 million bribe. It's usually like,
between a company and
the prime minister of the entire country. That's not usually how that goes down. That's like you bribe like a border agent.
It still wouldn't really be called being paid under the table.
Yeah, because the thing is,
something else.
The president of the country could just legitimately demand more money, and he doesn't have to hide it from anyone. Because he's the one hiring them in the first place.
Yeah, he was hiring them for a legit job, so why would it need to be under the table? They were paying him to get rights to film this. Nothing about that is under the table. That's normal. That's a thing that happens regularly.
Right. This is just
that you have to pay the city for shutting down the street that you need to film on? Yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, filming rights are a thing that people normally just negotiate for as a fee.
I used to live in a city that regularly had film crews in it. So they would pay the city and they would barricade and block off this section of the city so they could film. Like, these are deals that happen. Like, the deal might happen behind closed doors and you might not know the exact amounts or whatever, but you know it's happening.
Yeah, there's no reason for any of this to be under the table. Filming rights.
Why would you hide it? There's no reason to... You knew that Paramount filmed the other one. Why would they hide this one?
Yeah.
Especially before they knew it was under there.
Thing, but more detailed. He said that the city was 6.5 by 8 miles wide and 12 stories deep, and the city was outlined by specific temples in Egypt. The 3 pyramids are lined up with Orion's belt.
But it was actually just one building.
Yeah, it's a giant building, apparently.
Temples for every other star in the constellation. Those temples map out the city underground and are made out of a special stone not found anywhere else in Egypt called Koinen stone.
I'm going to also say that these temples are made out of brand new stone that isn't anywhere else in Egypt is another citation needed moment. Because why would that would be a thing people would notice.
I'm getting really confused by his terminology. So are these temples inside a building that is actually a city then?
No, I think he's claiming that
these buildings inside of a building?
I think what he's claiming is that these are temples up on the surface that correlate to corners of the borders of the city, I think. It's hard to
Are they
follow.
all inside of okay. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to remake your video only talking about this, and please explain what the hell you're talking about, because you lost me.
Incredibly enough, very recently, ancient tunnels were found in Romania that led to both Egypt and the inner Earth.
What? There's a tunnel in Romania that goes all the way to Egypt. Hold on. I'm opening Google Maps. Hold on.
They're not very close.
Google Maps. Let me go find Romania. I need to hold on.
And don't forget, Inner Earth.
I need to measure the distance to that.
This isn't King Kong or Godzilla versus Kong, right? If there were an Inner Earth, we would know, because we've done things like seismic mapping of the interior of the Earth. There isn't just a big old blank spot in there. It's just not true.
Romania.
Cool. I'm gonna hit play while you check that.
Dracula over here is actually just an ascended Egyptian king.
Hey, actually,
where's Egypt? There's
northeast
Greece.
Corner of Africa.
There's Algeria. There's Egypt. Wow. But yeah. So, okay, I thought there was water between point A and point B, but I wasn't sure. That's why I wanted to see. So does the tunnel go, straight to Egypt, or does it go under Istanbul?
Maybe he'll tell us. But even if it goes under Istanbul, there's a lot of water around Istanbul. I would not want to dig a tunnel with, Bronze or Iron Age technology under Istanbul.
Okay, so from just the near the center of Romania to Cairo is 1,000 kilometers. Oh wait, no, sorry, that's the center. 1,814.85 kilometers.
So almost 2 megameters if you're gonna be using megameters.
Should I pick like a city in Romania?
I don't think it matters much. It's an absurd distance to tunnel.
Underwater, you have to go down deep enough to get below the
That's B and C, right?
Yeah, hold on, yeah. Let's see, where would you go? You would have to go underneath you have to do a couple. Because there's a couple chunks of water there. You could do the Aegean Sea, you could go that way, or you have to go across the Sea of Marmara. I don't know how to pronounce anything. Don't.
That's true. You do not.
I don't. It's true. Not to mention, there's like little lakes and things in between, and this one's not labeled. What are you?
It's the Lake of No Name. I'm gonna hit play though.
Oh, the Mediterranean.
Okay, write it down. 3:42 p.m. Eastern Time, June 26, 2021, the day that Chesh admitted she didn't know where the Mediterranean was.
Well, I was looking for the name in the sea, and I was too zoomed in, so I had to zoom out and find where it had the name listed. But yeah, no, I'm garbage at geography. I have no qualms about that. But we're talking like... They didn't have cars. Did they walk?
Apparently, yeah, the whole tunnel, you just walk it, I guess.
How long do you think it would take to build, with modern technology, do you think it would take to build that kind of a tunnel with like proper structuring?
Decades.
It would take so much money.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, Don Giovanni, you do have to tunnel under the Mediterranean. A few other bodies of water, too.
Now, I don't have time to go into detail about this particular story, but if you want, check out the book Transylvanian Sunrise by Radu Sinamar. To be clear, this is a theory that has not been accepted by the Egyptian government, but the underground city that Thoth set...
You mean the Egyptian government, who's behind the whole thing, doesn't accept it? I mean, I guess if it's top secret, then sure. Also, he says, yep, it's even in the Emerald Tablets. By the way, that there is the Emerald Tablet of Hermes. There's nothing to do with Thoth. And Jordan seems to have spun this into actual physically emerald tablets that are not extant anywhere. And there's no evidence that they ever were. Also, the actual Emerald Tablet of Hermes, Trismegistus, doesn't go back to ancient times. It goes back to like 9th century Arabia. It's just not an ancient text of mystical wisdom. It goes back to like the late classical period at best.
I'm trying to look up that author now.
Good luck. I'm sure he's written many wonderful books.
19.
Ooh.
There's a little blurb over here from Google Books talking about the author. A high-ranking member of Romania's most secret intelligence service, Department Zero, Radu Sinamar, has written 5 previous books concerning the discovery of a secret chamber beneath the Romanian Sphinx, which contains advanced technology and a projection hall that holographically tells the story of mankind. Radu has been involved in unacknowledged special access projects for the better part of 2 decades and has also written about mysterious civilizations inside Earth. Peter Moon is, so there's 2. There's that guy and then Peter Moon that's listed as the author. Peter Moon is the author and publisher of the whatever it is, the whatever, the thing that the Project Book series and the Transylvania series. What the am I looking at? This is on Google. I had to find this on Google Books that don't even have a wiki.
Tesla Ranger asks, remember that Star Trek The Next Generation episode, Homeward, where Worf had an entire village walk to another planet using the holodeck? Yeah, hashtag Prime Directive. Look, Starfleet has always been a little iffy on following their so-called prime directive. It's a shot. It's kind of a hit or miss sort of thing. But yeah.
Is, according to Mr. Hunter, marked by temples made of a unique substance, and the temples match the star pattern of the constellation of Orion.
What's this
4,000
music?
years after the stair-step evolution, we were at our lowest stage of our evolution.
What?
We were hitting bottom on the awareness road.
Okay, the medieval period was not the bottom of the awareness road. There was a decline in certain areas, but there was also advancements in others. We had more advanced farming. Literature, contrary to popular belief, was not on the decline at all. In fact, some very important works of literature were being written. They were continually being written. And even the declines that did happen in Europe, say, after the fall of the Roman Empire, were not evenly declining everywhere else in the world. Most places in the world never noticed this so-called decline. And yeah, and it's like, oh, there were witch burnings. Yep, there were in fact witch burnings. Just like all through history, people have been convicted on stupid reasons like trial by combat, or having diviners cut open animal, check their entrails to see what was going to happen. I mean, the fact that a particularly recent and at the time relatively new form of stupidity was happening isn't a general indication of broad societal decline in terms of advancement.
Can I wrap up this video a little bit? Like the video we just watched, I mean.
Yeah.
What you've just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it.
You know, I might actually have that clip handy. Let's find out. Let's see if I have it, because I'm pretty sure I actually do.
Oh dear.
I think it's in my downloads folder actually.
Mr. Madison, I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
That's not
I mean,
it.
I guess this video did kind of make me think that there was like, it did get my mind questioning what the hell this person was talking about. So I guess you could call that like exercise.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh wait, this might be it.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I knew I had that clip laying around somewhere.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, we're gonna, because Chesh, you think this is all separate videos, but this is actually a compilation of his entire history series.
Suddenly, out of the darkness, 3 men came to Earth to give us a little nudge. Everything in ancient Egypt
Was that Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha? Because if that's the case,
Wait,
witch burnings hadn't happened.
did he just imply that the 3 random guys, Harry, Curly, and Mo, that showed up to open that light source was Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha?
I don't think that's necessarily the claim he's making. I wouldn't put it past him, but I don't think I have enough to say that that's the claim he's currently making.
I said implied.
I don't know if he's implying that. I don't think he is, but maybe.
It kind of seems like that's what he's implying.
Oh, and hello, Aztec Dragon. Oh, actually, by the way, Aztec Dragon has a Quetzalcoatlus as his avatar, but Chesh, did you know that, I think last year, a new Azdarkid from Canada was discovered?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. It's, I think it might be the only named Azdarkid taxon from Canada. And, yeah, so there you go. And the initial reconstruction had a had like markings in terms of its color that were oddly reminiscent of the Canadian flag, and I thought to myself, that seems far-fetched. I don't actually think an ancient pterosaur from Canada had the Canadian flag as its body markings.
I mean, maybe if it was a bug or a butterfly, because like it's just a maple leaf. So like I would buy like a flower or a bug looking like a maple leaf, but like a pterosaur, that seems I guess it's possible, but it seems a little bit far-fetched.
Yeah, it was a cool picture, and I liked that they're like going all in on the Canada part, but I'm just like, not buying this, guys. Sorry. No offense to Canada, but I don't think their flag was present on pterosaurs.
Yeah, probably not.
Synthetic. They had this entire civilization based around achieving heightened states of consciousness, but they had to do it through tools. Now, we're not going to look at each of these tools individually.
Okay, so
thank God.
Those are both tools. So first we've got anks right over on the left. Now, the ankh is...
Anks are just beer bottle openers. I don't know what to tell you.
They're actually more likely sandal straps. But it's literally a phonetic sign that means the word life. And then, you know how people can use like initialisms or things like that to stand for important things, and the letter can take on some symbolic significance because of that? That's what's happening here. And on the right...
Ancient peoples had religion, yes.
Oh wait, it doesn't even need religion, right? Like you know how the symbol that atheists often use is a stylized A?
Not the symbol. I mean, like what he's saying. He's saying that they were focused on enlightenment and stuff. And it's like, when have people not been focused on that in some kind of various way throughout history?
Right. And also these two things here, where you have the little flail and the crook, these were just essentially royal scepters from Upper and Lower Egypt. And since for much of Egyptian history, the two kingdoms were united under a single pharaoh, that pharaoh of both Upper and Lower Egypt would carry the royal symbols of both kingdoms, which in one case was a crook and in one case was a flail. And then on the headdress, there was a cobra and a vulture, because one of those was associated with the kingdom of Upper Egypt and the other with the kingdom of Lower Egypt. And so when the kingdoms were united, they tended to use both symbols of authority. They weren't associated with reaching higher levels of consciousness. They were associated with political authority because they were symbols of political authority. Just like, what the fasces is in the Roman Republican period?
Are you asking me? Because no.
Okay, fair enough. So the fasces was a symbol of the authority of the consul of Rome. And it was a bundle of sticks which represented the fact that when working together, the people of Rome were strong, but when they work apart, they were brittle and easy to break. But handing someone...
I don't really want to talk about a bundle of sticks.
Well, but this is also where you get the word fascism, because it's related to the idea of everyone working together, which was still represented by the fasces in ancient Rome. But anyway, the fasces was actually used as a symbol of authority. In fact, if the consul needed to delegate a task to someone as like, hey, you're going to be like my lieutenant in charge of like city planning, when that subordinate had to go and actually order people around, he could be given the actual physical fasces of the consul as his mark of authority over the people he was ordering around, because the consul had given him this authority.
It's like carrying on a license or a badge. It's like, here, you have the authority to do this. This is a demarcation that you have this authority to do this thing. Here's a seal. Here's a...
That's what we're looking at here.
Police badge. Here's a permit.
Right. The flail and crook were primarily symbols of political authority in ancient Egypt. That's what you're seeing here. You're not seeing mystical tools that bring you to higher levels of consciousness.
Well, let me give you a brief overview here.
Okay.
This tool was used for transferring vibrations into the body. Along with that were the hook and flail. This little device was a kind of generator to increase vibrations, though there's not too much information available on it.
Actually, that little quote-unquote device is the Jed pillar, which represents... It's a logogram for stability, and actually represents the pillars on which, like, the Earth is set.
Stability is the opposite of increasing vibration.
Yeah, also true. Yeah.
This thing, however, was their most important tool, the ankh.
It's literally not a tool. It's a word. And you carried it around like You know how people get like the
It's the
religious
symbol
words
of
tattooed?
the Avatar from Ultima.
But you know how people like get religious tattoos on, like they might get like a tattoo that says like it has a Bible verse or something on it, or like maybe just says Jesus or something. That's essentially what's happening here. You're making a physical representation of a word that is significant. The image itself, the actual physical form of the ankh.
It just makes me think that he's saying the word Jesus is a tool.
Basically, it's what he's saying.
Like a physical tool instead of like some kind of metaphorical.
That's what he's essentially saying, because
Yeah.
the actual physical form of the ankh is probably derived from a sandal strap. Like the circle is where you put your ankle through, then the two side bits connect it to the side of the sandal, and then the front part goes between your toes and connects it to the front of the sandal. Like you're literally looking at a piece of footwear right now. And it, because of what's called the rebus principle, where you say things like, you know how you get those puzzles where like someone draws an eyeball and it means the word I, like first person singular nominative case pronoun in English? For the same reason, the word for sandal strap sounded like the word for life. So they wrote the word for life with a stylized picture of a sandal strap. And that's what we're looking at here.
Media, it's marketing.
They saw the ankh as the secret to eternal life, and they used it not as a physical tool, but as an energetic one. They would use this form
because energy isn't physical, apparently. Energy is the ability of a system to do work, Jordan. It is a physical property of a given system. If you want to propose non-physical energy, you're going to have to actually detail how that works, what that is. You can't just take words from science and pretend they have some mystical meaning because you said so, especially not when you're importing like late 20th and early 21st century New Age mysticism into a classical period like Egypt. Like, you just can't do that.
This is big brained.
Yeah, this is some galaxy brain misunderstanding of how Egyptian writing works.
And ankh their sexual energy.
Oh,
now,
well, there goes Monix.
I'm sorry, they onked their energy. I'm sorry, that this is like putting the word smurf into things.
Now,
I smurfed her last night. It was smurfing great.
Now, Chet, you have a new search term for when you're doing your late night searches for interesting content.
Turns out the ankh was just a sex toy.
I mean, that wouldn't be the worst theory I've heard. We do have...
It would work. It's got the ring on it. It's got a long bit. Yeah, it would work.
Well, we do actually have ancient sex toys as like artifacts. And they're not always very, very well labeled in museums. You look at things like, this is a statue of a mushroom. And you look at it and you're like, yeah, but is that what it is, though? Is that really the most likely interpretation of this particular object? Feels like it's not. So that is actually a thing that we do have in the archaeological record.
This could be a huge topic on its own, like how energy travels up and down the body through a vertical tube between 5 energy channels that counter-rotate as they extend through the body.
What?
I like how he's just dismissing this as if, oh, you guys know about the counter-rotating energy fields that go around the human body between apparently the chakra.
Up and down in a tube.
Wow.
I mean, I've heard of chi points, but like that's not what this is.
Okay, there's a new character concept. The super hypersexualized monk that uses their chi points to ankh themselves.
And their weapon is a giant statue of a mushroom.
There you go.
Energy is an incredibly powerful energy. We definitely abuse it today, but what...
The only way I can parse this in a way that makes sense is that sex is a big part of the motivation of people generally, which, yeah, I'll grant you.
I'm back. I've gone back to the ancient pharaohs being gigantic people who had, and their concubines had to invent pole dancing.
Also, I want to point out something. When it comes to misusing sexual energy, I don't think Jordan should be the one to talk about this because, yeah, he's admitted to having some extremely non-consensual and obviously non-consensual sexual contact.
I mean, when you talk like this and you seem like you have such big incel energy, it's probably the only way is to, abuse your sexual energy.
Well, let's just say this. A former partner, on recording that is publicly available, when he said, oh, but it came from a place of love, and she said, but I was crying, and he tried to explain that one away. Yeah. So maybe Jordan should stay away from pointing out that people might be misusing their sexual energy. Because I'm trying to dance around a certain word. I don't know if you guys have noticed. But we'll continue on after I point out what a complete...
I don't know if this is an indication that I should just say the word or not.
No, it isn't. I'm hoping that I can later run ads on this, maybe. But yeah, don't say the word, but I think everyone knows...
That's what I do to... Listen, I know I'm on a different channel. That's what I do to Steve. Steve will try and dance around something, and then I'll just be like, this!
No, don't say the word. But let's just say it's a word that rhymes with grape.
Oh, okay.
The Egyptians knew was that when you had an orgasm, a very large amount of energy bursts from your root chakra all the way up your spine to the top of your head, and then it gets released.
See, I knew he was going to talk about chakras.
Was when the spiral of energy hit their heart chakra,
okay,
they would ankh the energy out of the back of their body. And
ankh isn't a verb, dude. You can't just say that you can't just use this noun as a verb and just be like, oh, that's just what they do. It doesn't mean anything.
I told you, he's basically, he may as well have said smurfed.
Yeah, it's and over their head and back into their body, where they would keep the energy and retain a massive energy boost.
All right, guys, that's actually pretty bad for you. You should not keep doing that. You gotta let things actually come out. Don't push things back in after the orgasm. That can cause some actual medical problems. The more you know.
In other words, if you take a tuning fork and hit it, it will reverberate for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
Then, if you attach an ankh on top of it and hit it again, it will reverberate at least 3 times longer.
Will it though? Because that sounds like a citation needed sort of situation.
I'm baffled.
Tuning forks vibrate 3 times longer for some reason. You just attach an ankh to the bottom of them? Says who? Why?
Does it have to be an ankh shape?
I guess. Also, by the way, guys, the amount of time the tuning fork vibrates has to do primarily with how hard you hit it.
I want to know if I could then make it even double again if I add another ankh on top of the ankh I already added.
Just keep on adding ankhs so that it eventually...
Yeah, why don't we have infinite energy because we bonked a big tuning fork that has a bunch of ankhs attached to it?
Ooh, a circle of ankhs. So that way it just loops back in on itself.
Yeah, infinite energy.
We solved it. We solved the infinite energy crisis. We now have enough energy to power literally everything, literally forever.
Good job, everybody.
Perpetual motion achieved by mysticism.
I mean, it makes about as much sense as the cat with a piece of peanut butter on its back. Like bread and peanut butter.
That's true. Yeah, I put the bread with the butter or peanut butter on one side and then attach it to the cat, drop them. Yeah.
Egyptians were doing this with their bodies. Moving on. When Atlantis was...
Oh yeah, we're just gonna go right past that. No real explanation. Just moving on back to Atlantis, which, remember, didn't really exist in this reality.
First formed, the Nacals set up something called a mystery school.
Ooh.
This is the special type of...
If you're teaching it to people, is it really a mystery?
School where you learn about consciousness, and you learn different aspects of expanding your own consciousness, and eventually getting to a place where you become immortal. It usually took a very long time to achieve this state, and that's why there were only...
So I'm gonna do that thing and strap some ankhs to the bottom of my feet, because they're clearly just sandals. And I'm gonna live forever.
Nice, because every time you take a step, your vibrations are gonna continue on.
Yeah, and here's what I'll do. I'm gonna get a headpiece, like a hair clip, a new hair clip, and I'm gonna get a pin that's shaped like a tuning fork. I'm going to stick that in my hair to hold my hair up, and I'll be walking around with my ankhs on the bottom and my vibrator on the top, and then I'll be good to go.
Well, you won't need batteries, because apparently it'll just keep on vibrating.
I will never have to eat food or sleep again.
Wait, you'll have actually figured out how to make breatharianism work. All you needed was some help from Jordan.
Yeah, correct. Yes, and the ancient Egyptians, and I'll be able to go even longer because I'll have 2 ankhs instead of 1.
Nice.
Called in comparison to the millions of Lemurians at the start of Atlantis. The first Atlantean to reach the immortal state was a man named Osiris. Ancient Egypt's mythology tells a story about Osiris, a man who was killed and cut up into pieces by his brother in an act of rage, and then the pieces were scattered. This event, perhaps less exaggerated than the myths, actually did happen, and it took place on Atlantis.
Well, that's certainly not in the Egyptian story, so why are we relocating this to Atlantis? Who knows?
I don't know, you'd have to be pretty mad to be in a fit of rage chopping somebody up, because that kind of thing takes time.
Maybe it takes less time if you're a god, because then you're stronger.
But not if the person you killed is also a god? I don't know.
But now it's a dead god. That doesn't count.
Oh, alright.
Yeah.
Osiris's wife and sister retrieved the pieces, and upon returning the final piece...
No. Okay, hold on. He says wife and sister and pictures 2 people here. No. It's his wife and sister, same person. That's what's supposed to be happening. Isis, the wife and sister of Osiris, searched for all the pieces.
Grammar is important, kids.
Did not find all of the pieces, but found all but one of the piece. Didn't find the one extra piece because it had already been eaten by a crocodile, and it happened to be Osiris's penis.
That's what the ankh is for.
Oh, it's to replace Osiris's now missing manhood? Okay, sure.
There we go.
And brought his spirit back into the body. Through doing this, Osiris became immortal, and he was the first immortal of Atlantis.
The story is a little more complex than that.
Yeah. Also, it's a little bit more incestuous, because apparently even Jordan isn't quite comfortable with the actual story. He's like, ugh, that's a little icky.
I bet he didn't realize.
Also,
is that bird carrying a tail?
I think it's a fan. Like with a feather.
You sure? Are you sure that doesn't go, like, in somewhere?
I'm not sure. But I think it's a fan.
Alright. If you say so.
Yes.
This story is told throughout ancient Egypt on many temple walls, and I'm going to show you why. Osiris went...
You know what? We're going to wait for next time for the why. I thought I was going to get through this in about 2 hours, but we're now almost at the 1 hour or 2 hour mark, and we're not even close, and I definitely blame Chesh.
What? Hold on. I've been being very good. I don't know what you mean.
Oh, I didn't say it was actually your fault. I just said I'm blaming you.
Oh, okay, fair.
Yeah, doesn't matter whose fault it is. Blame is a separate kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right, now that we have that
That's
out of the way. So I will give some channel updates. So Tuesday is going to be another Canadian event. Thursday will be the next episode of Canadian Young Earth Creationism. Then Saturday will, unless something else comes up that I'm going to do, will be more of this, apparently, because I'm only at 53-59 out of how much? 108. So, you know, it's a little bit of, don't hit play.
Can I answer somebody in chat real quick?
Yeah.
They said, I'm behind. Did he imply that Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha lived at the same time? He implied a lot of things.
He kind of did, even though, you know, Buddha comes centuries before Jesus, who comes centuries before Muhammad. So, now, maybe
but they were all there when they showed up to let that light down to go into the ancient area.
I still don't actually think that's his claim.
I bet it is.
Okay, look, you might be right. I'm not saying I know it's not his claim. You might be right. I just don't think it's his claim. But it very well could be. I wouldn't put it past him. I'm just not willing to go to that point.
Yeah, that's fair, I guess. We should ask him, dude. Did you mean that? Did you mean that? Because I'm down. If it was, I'm totally there. I'm following. I got you.
So let's see. That covers.
Or was he implying that it was the 3 other guys with the beaks? Or are the 3 other guys with the beaks and Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha also all the same people?
They might be. Okay,
they might be. I don't know.
So let's see. Yeah, the 29th is another Kent with Bent. I'm hoping to have on the 1st the next Speculative Evolution video out. I only have to do one more creature and then do the sound, I believe. So stay tuned for that. I don't know what's happening on the 3rd, but then on the 6th should be Kent with Bent again, and yeah. So that's it for channel stuff. You guys know what I have the same schedule pretty much every week. Tuesday is Kent with Bent or Eric with Erica. Thursday is a pre-recorded scripted video, and Saturday might be.
We have D&D on a upcoming Monday soon.
I think it's this Monday, but I'm not positive.
That's what I said.
So we have to talk to our DM about that because I'm not positive. But anyway, when last we left our intrepid heroes, they were surrounded by ankylosaurs that everyone was calling allosaurus. But they were ankylosaurs. And
we won that fight.
We did win that fight, and we almost had my character die because those things hit hard.
There's a couple of people who almost died. That was that pours all the way down the chat, all the way down that chat.
Yeah, that was a rough encounter for the party. I'm hoping that it gets. Let's just say this: we're very low on resources like spell slots and whatnot. So
I don't know if you've noticed, but I specifically put myself in a position that I could just Spider-Man my way right back up that shaft if everybody died.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, anyway, thank you everyone for coming, watching this with us. Please do remember to hit like if you haven't already. I'm seeing that there are a fair few of you who have not hit like. Also, thank you very much to everyone who super chatted. That really does help the channel out. And I'm going to get out of here and leave you with my end credits. So I will see all of you guys later.
Bye.
I just want to take a moment to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Bent Hovind, Ian Chen, Chris Love, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, and Patrick Dennis. My patrons and channel members really help make this channel possible, and without them, this channel wouldn't exist. If you would like to support me, you can click the join link on this channel below this video, or you can click on my Patreon, link in the description, and pledge. On Patreon, there is an option for an annual subscription, which comes with a 10% discount. And joining the channel will give you access to my custom emojis. However, if a regular pledge isn't for you, I do have a merch store. And if monetarily helping out the channel isn't a thing you can do, every like, share, and comment really helps the channel.